Hello, good evening, or actually it's 12 o'clock right now, so I am back with another NASCAR video for your eyes. Now this time, I think I got recommended this, 8 things you probably didn't know about NASCAR, a video by Slapshoes. So this is probably good because I get a bit of a rundown about how NASCAR works. Thank you for whoever requested this, appreciate requests. Be sure to go check out my gaming channel as well. I'm gonna start posting some more, I'm pretty sure. And oh, my fucking jaw hurts, man. It's not because of what you think. I've got like a fucking pulled nerve or some shit. Anyway, what am I talking about? Let's get it started. NASCAR.
Over time, I've noticed that a good chunk of my subscribers have either never watched a NASCAR race or have just started getting into the sport. And with the quarantine finally being partially lifted this week, and NASCAR being the first American sport to resume competition, albeit with no fans in attendance, checking into NASCAR for the first time. So I thought it might be a good idea to explain what exactly the hell is going on here for newcomers. NASCAR is actually a lot like baseball or golf. The more you know about it, the more interesting it becomes. But the less you know about it, the more ridiculous it seems. So with information at a premium, here are 8 things that you probably didn't know about NASCAR. First off, NASCAR was started by state and federal criminals. Although NASCAR's founder Bill France was never a rum runner himself, NASCAR's early rosters from the late 40s and early 50s were filled with convicts and guys who just never got caught. Before and after Prohibition, intoxicating spirits were banned outright in several states in the Southeast. So enterprising young men throughout the South souped up their hot rods so they could outrun the cops when they were on one of their nightly runs. Eventually, local legends grew, and people wanted to know which of their local bootleggers was the best driver. And so tracks and competitions were organized, and at some point somebody had the bright idea to start selling tickets to these get-togethers. And stock car racing was born.
Is this how it all started?
They
were trying to race each other to see who was a better getaway
driver. Growing interest and established the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing, NASCAR. And the rest was history. While many NASCAR stars had their fair share of run-ins with the law, there was none more famous than the last American hero himself, Junior Johnson. A 50-time winner in NASCAR's top series, Junior Johnson was arrested by federal revenuers in 1956, and went to fire up his father's still one night. He spent 1 year in federal prison and was eventually pardoned by President Ronald Reagan many years later, although he had begun the appeal process under the Carter administration. But in true bootlegger fashion, if you ever brought this up to Junior while he was still alive, he'd be quick to remind you that he never got caught behind the wheel while he was making one of his runs. Junior gained a reputation on the track for being a tough-as-nails driver and an innovative mechanic. So innovative, in fact, that he is widely regarded as one of the most cheatingest figures in all of NASCAR. And that gets me to number 2 on this list. Cheating is not only tolerated by NASCAR fans, but is actually celebrated. I know this comes as a shocker, and it's
hitting each other
in existence, but hear me out. Although the sanctioning body of NASCAR is very stringent with its rules, NASCAR fans have always turned a blind eye to cheaters in the sport and actually sing their praises amongst themselves. Teams are allowed to either build their own cars or purchase them from other teams. And even though NASCAR has strict specifications that those cars
you don't even have to.
There's always a little wiggle room left to
Don't even. Why do I stutter so much? So they don't even need to make their own car. So if you're rich, you can essentially just get your own team. Or like build your own team by just buying other cars. Did not know that. I thought, I mean, I know it's only like Ford and Chevy. That's the 2 like car types. Has there ever been any other ones? Like other car brands that have gone into it? Or has it always been Ford and Chevrolet?
Saying in NASCAR, if you ain't cheating, then you ain't winning. Everybody does it.
So it's all about cheating to win.
Just breaking a rule before it's on the books. Junior Johnson was so prolific in the art of rule dodging that he actually had one of his creations put into the NASCAR Hall of Fame, the Yellow Banana, a 66 Ford Galaxy that was one of the most disgustingly illegal cars in the history of the sport, and got its name due to its shape and its yellow paint job.
So what you're telling me is that they don't have do they not have any rules? Do they just send them out and say, do what you have to do? I mean, I'm guessing it's a lot more strict now than when he was driving, but is there no like FIA, like in F1, where they have to check the car every race to see that it's in the rules? So you can build a spaceship essentially and just fly past everyone.
Best Junior Johnson in the dark arts of stock car cheating, it was Smokey Yunick. With a silly name and a penchant for disregarding the rules at every turn, NASCAR fans became enamored with Smokey's antics. He did anything to get a leg up over the competition, making his engines too big, mounting his bodies too far forward on the frame, increasing the size of the fuel tank, and when officials became wary of that, they mandated the size of the fuel tank to 20 gallons. But Smokey then just made the fuel line wrap around the car, which squeezed an extra gallon or two out of the limit set in place.
I mean, is that really cheating, or is that just like being a master of engineering?
One famous example, Smokey had his fuel tank seized by NASCAR tech inspectors, saying that it was too large and he had a total of 10 infractions that needed to be changed. They pulled the fuel tank out of the car as extra punishment, thinking that Smokey would have to push the car back to the garage. But instead, Smokey just jumped in the car, cranked it up, still with no fuel tank in it, and drove it back to his crew while shouting at the officials, "Make that 11 things." True to his name, Smokey fought
he had an
the
extra
lines
fuel
between
tank.
right and wrong. And even to this day, this proud tradition of rule bending is still alive in NASCAR. As recently as 2018, during the Flexgate scandal,
can't lie,
Stewart-Haas racing cars have manipulated the bracing
he's
on
just
the
a
rear
hustler
window to give way at high speeds to direct more airflow towards the spoiler. An exploit famously found out by NASCAR Reddit. Being as there was no rule in place to break at the time,
so the Reddit is like the FIA.
But said that anything of the like found going forward would be dealt with harshly, as teams found out the hard way later. The Stewart-Haas team of cars beat the law at the time, but that actually leads to the question, wait, there are teams in NASCAR? Well, yeah, number 3. NASCAR is a team sport. One team owner might expand his stable from one car to include 2, 3, or even 4 cars.
Yeah, it's been like team
as of right now. Piloted by different drivers with different crew chiefs who prepare the cars, these teams share information and discoveries, but still prepare their cars independently according to the preferences of the drivers. Sometimes this leads to friendly and not so friendly competition in-house, which may or may not have beneficial effects on the teams. It's all dependent on the chemistry of the people involved. So the owner of the entire operation has to manage his personnel accordingly. Just as important as the team of mechanics
it's like F1, isn't it?
Who service the car during the action.
Yeah, so it's essentially like F1, kind of. You are in the team, but you're still, you still wanna race each other, right? Is what I'm guessing.
These fearless men, plucked from the rosters of professional and athletic programs, braved the chaos of pit road and changed tires and put new fuel in the car. All
it has to be a sponsor, right? That can't be the team.
Dozens of other cars and teams are all doing the same thing on pit lane. Under ideal conditions, a NASCAR pit crew can change 4 tires, top off fuel, and make adjustments to the car in less than 14 seconds. And yes, sometimes accidents do occur when they get hurt. But thanks to safety regulations and the skill of other drivers out there on pit lane, those incidents are few and far between. The pit crew members are the athletes that make the team the best they can be on race day. But what about the guys behind the wheel piloting the race car itself? That gets us to number 4. Yes, the drivers are athletes. It takes a special type of crazy to hop into a metal coffin wearing a fireproof suit and a car around at 200 miles an hour.
That is true. The crashes that I've been seeing, I don't think you can be unfit to be able to withstand, those G's and shit. I think in every motorsport, they are athletes. Yeah, like in any motorsport. I think like the fitter you are, the better it is. Don't think you can be overweight to fit in those fucking cockpits. I've seen the cockpits; they're pretty tight.
Also takes an insane amount of physical fitness as well. Temperatures inside the car can reach as high as 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and in this oven.
Whew! How hot is that in Celsius? 50? No wait, 50 is like 110, 120. So maybe 60, 65, 65. Oh damn!
To think critically about your next move and have cat-like reflexes, all while communicating to your crew about how your car is holding up via radio. NASCAR legend Bobby Allison used to prepare for these insane conditions by driving around his home in Hueytown, Alabama in his personal car in the middle of the summer with the windows rolled up, with the heat blasting, and while wearing several jackets. Drivers nowadays take trips to the sauna, have a strict fitness regimen, and diet they have to adhere to in order to stay at peak performance. The man we can thank for this breakthrough is Mark Martin. A man often derided as undersized during his early career, the 5'6" Arkansas native took up weightlifting and high-level fitness programs to make up for it, and found out that the workouts actually made him better equipped to handle the demands of NASCAR racing. And soon after that...
why wouldn't it though? If you're just overall fit, everything's gonna be better. Your reflexes, if you train, your reflexes, your reaction time and stuff, if you're fit, obviously, your body's gonna, I don't say feel better, but, your body's gonna react better to things. So yeah, that's not really a shock to me. If I was in a motorsport, or if I was, if this was my career to drive, I would be trying to work the fuck out, be as fit as possible, because then you've got the best chance. And I wonder if like steroids counts as cheating. I bet you everyone's pumping steroids, then, as he said, cheating is a big part of it.
50s and still winning races, Mark was still rocking an 8-pack. Wait,
damn.
Mark was still winning races in his 50s? Yep, that gets us to number 5 on the list. NASCAR drivers can have incredibly long careers. The average successful NASCAR driver will make his first starts in his early 20s, and will retire in his mid to late 40s. Some drivers even go beyond this. In 1992, Harry Gant set the record that still stands today as the oldest driver to ever win a NASCAR race at 52 years old.
Damn, 52? He's almost got his fucking pension, and he's still racing.
Martin got close in 2009 at age 50, but no driver has challenged the throne since. And to give you some perspective, if the youngest driver to ever win a race, Joey Logano, who got his first win at the age of 19 in 2009, beat Harry Gant's record, we would have to wait until 2043. Current drivers span all age groups and backgrounds.
That is
Joey
nuts.
Logano from Connecticut will turn 30 this year. His teammate Ryan Blaney is 26 and hails from Ohio. And one of the best in the business right now, Kevin Harvick from Bakersfield, California, is 44 and has just signed a multi-year contract extension. Hey, maybe he'll be the one to take handsome Harry Gant's crown.
Holy shit.
Okay, so we've covered the who, the what, and the why of NASCAR. But as you sit down to watch the race, what should you be keeping your eye on? Yes, there's daring, death-defying moves and beating and banging action happening every so often. But what keeps NASCAR crazies such as myself glued to the TV for the duration of the race?
What a
Number
clusterfuck.
6, it's all about strategy. Most NASCAR races are between 4 and 500 miles long. And as you probably guessed, you have to stop for tires and fuel along the way.
Yeah.
But when do you do it? Your tires will wear out faster the harder you push them. So do you just take it easy and make up time in the long run? Or do you push it now and end up losing time as the race goes on? You need to make it to the front in order to win, but when and how you do this matters in the grand scheme of things. Helping the driver and the crew work this out and masterminding the whole plan is the crew chief. He oversees the whole operation and decides what adjustments to make to the car according to the driver's inputs over the radio.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense.
Suggestions to the driver.
Strategy is always a big part of
some drivers like their crew chief
most
to handle the mental
motorsports.
heavy lifting. Others prefer to run at their own pace and just let the crew chief worry about adjustments. Either way, pairing the right drivers with the right crew chief is crucial to ending up in victory lane at the end of the day. But there's one other guy in this conversation that we haven't talked about yet, the spotter. That gets us to number 7. Drivers can't actually see that much inside of their cars. Due to safety regulations, drivers are pretty much bolted into their seats and their head movement is very limited. So to help with this, drivers have spotters that communicate with them constantly, telling them where the other cars are out on the track, if there's a wreck up ahead, or what the leader's up to. These crew members, perched high atop the press box, are usually family members of the driver or former drivers themselves, who are handpicked based on their ability to communicate effectively with the driver. On those crazy double-file restarts, the information spotters provide is understandably extremely important. In the early days before radio communications were widely available, lots of fatalities and injuries were caused simply because drivers didn't know what was happening up ahead. As you probably expected, anytime a car is on the track, it is required by rule that the driver has a spotter up on the spotter stand to give him an extra set of eyes in the sky.
Yeah, I think I've heard, I think I've seen some clips about, when they're in the cockpit and you can hear someone talking in the ear. On your right, car coming up on your right. So I'm guessing that's the spotter saying that stuff. I thought it was like the engineer or some shit. Where they, say information and shit. But yeah, I didn't know it was actually like someone just standing on top of the fucking what do you call it, stadium, and just like giving call outs essentially.
And drivers usually only have essential communications with their spotter and crew chief, as they can almost read each other's minds. However, newer drivers typically have a lot more radio traffic, as the spotter kind of doubles as a cheerleader and guide. And here's the coolest part about all this radio chatter. You can actually listen in. Using various apps on NASCAR.com or by renting a scanner
this is
at the
what
track
I think
itself,
I heard something
you
with
can pick
this.
a driver and listen in on all the back and forth action for yourself. And yes, sometimes the teams listen in on each other to see what kind of strategies they're picking up. So don't be surprised if they start talking in code. But fair warning, these are grown men in a high-stress environment. Sometimes they say things that aren't exactly PG rated. So think twice about having your kids join in. Some tracks, though, are so massive that they require multiple spotters in different locations to help out the driver.
Imagine being in that.
Finally, to number 8. NASCAR goes to a lot of very different racetracks, and yes, we even make a few right-hand turns. Every driver in the series has to have a mastery of different disciplines in racing.
I've got a question. With that right-hand thing, do they ever drive the other way? So obviously it goes in a circle, right? And they drive left. But do they ever switch and drive right? So it's right-handed the whole way? Maybe I'll talk about it.
2-mile and up super speedways, the half-mile short tracks, or the twisting and turning road courses, by the end of the 36 race schedule,
I think
every
I've seen
driver
some
will have been put through a gauntlet of demanding venues. Tracks come in all shapes and sizes, and some of the lower divisions, NASCAR's minor leagues, even race on dirt. These circuits dot the U.S. landscape, from major markets like Atlanta and Las Vegas, to small towns tucked away in the southeast like Bristol and Martinsville, and everywhere in between. There are no away games, so to speak, in NASCAR, but with the vast majority of teams being located in North Carolina, having to pinball across the U.S. is a demanding effort in its own right, as hauler drivers will work around the clock driving a garage on wheels to and from each racetrack during the year. The crews and drivers will fly out to the track a few days before the race and spend hours running practice laps until they're finally happy with the car and move on to qualifying time trials to set the field, where the fastest driver starts at the front, also known as the pole position. Well, that about wraps it all up. 8 things you might not have known about NASCAR. Hopefully this video has shed some light on this weird, traditionally southern motorsport and given you a greater appreciation of these cars going around in differently shaped
I didn't know
circles
half
at
of the things he said.
fast speeds. If you want to know more about the types of drivers that make NASCAR what it is, then you can check out my video on the 9 types of NASCAR winners here and in the description down below.
Alright. Like, I'm gonna admit, some of this stuff, it's kind of like, I get a lot of references from, you know, F1, for an example, you know, qualifying, pole position, like he just said, and that, you know, you have to pit and stuff like that, and you have to use strategy, you know, that's a lot of similarities with F1, and that's, well, you know, there is strategy in, like, most things. Yeah, I would have thought that they also use strategy in it, but yeah, half of the other stuff I had no clue about. You know, the cheating, I don't know, cheating was a big part of it. And that Reddit, they were called up by Reddit on one of them. That's pretty funny. Yeah, and that with a spotter, I thought that was the engineer. Didn't know they had someone that was called a spotter to, you know, spot things and give information. But yeah, now I've got more knowledge of this sport. You always have to learn about different things. Again, thank you for the guy who requested this video. This was a good video, and if you enjoyed this reaction, please like, subscribe. As I said before, check out my gaming channel, it doesn't hurt. And yeah, I'll see you in my next video.